Mavericks Clippers game 2. Look, man, the Mavericks have been the better team for 6 of the 8 quarters, right? And the difference, the Clippers, what I think we're finding out here is, and there's various reasons for that, and we've talked about them not really being able to build chemistry, their players in and out of the bubble, and just throughout the season, load management and how can you just throw together a team. This isn't 2K. Chemistry matters, right? Camaraderie and familiarity, right? What it seems like is the Clippers defense is overrated. It really feels that way because now I know Dallas is the most high-powered offense in the league, so some of that is just Dallas's offense making anybody look crazy, right? Or not as good as they maybe are defensively. But the difference between, like, for instance, Toronto and the Clippers, both, two highly touted defenses, is the Clippers are an individual defense. They've got a bunch of great individual defenders. Paul George, Patrick Beverley, Kawhi Leonard, they're ISO guys. But as far as team defense goes, they're not on a string. They're not on a string at all. And that's what makes Toronto special and Milwaukee in a sense. Well, Milwaukee's system, right? In Toronto's system, they may not have as good as many individual lockdown guys, but together they're greater than the sum of their parts. In the Clippers, it's the opposite. And then you see a team like Dallas that's able to exploit that, pick them apart. Let me ask you this, though. Like the switch everything. You see the Clippers switch everything. Doesn't that kind of negate the point of having Paul George and Kawhi? Like down the stretch, I understand Beverly was out, but Doc stays with Lou. You've got these two vaunted defenders out there, George and Kawhi. What do? Well, you just switch until Lou's on ball, and then you pick on Lou. So I don't think Lemon Pepper Lou can be out there to close games. And with Beverly out, here's the thing. I had a calf strain last summer. Some of you may have remembered me talking about it. And the calf and the hamstring, those posterior chain muscles, the soft tissue back there, the injuries tend to just last way longer than you expect. They really do. So Beverly may not be a go through this series. Does Doc just lean super heavy on Reggie Jackson, who shot the ball very well, right? Or do you go to Shaman? Because I'd rather have Shaman out there at the end of the game than Lou. I understand what Lou brings to the table offensively, but do you really want to go to Lou down the stretch anyway? I know he gets hot, but it's either Kawhi or Paul George. That's what they're there for. And so it makes no sense to me to have Lou Williams out there so a team can relentlessly pick on him and you're switching your all-team defenders off the ball and Lou's just getting torn apart. And that's why Lou Williams has been a journeyman. Go look at his resume. He's a great six man. He's fun to watch. His teammates love him. He's a bucket. But ultimately, you've noticed team after team has been willing to part with him. Because when push comes to shove, when it really matters, can you have him on the floor? I don't think you can, man. I don't think you can. And that brings us to Pandemic P. I love that. I love that. Look, man, Paul George, you can write it off. It could be a cold night. But if you look at history, it's so funny. Playoff P, right? Like he really hasn't been that. He really hasn't been that. It's funny, too, that it's kind of been brushed under the table that Paul George was Kawhi, at best, his third choice, right? First, Kawhi called KD. Then he called Kyrie, I believe. And then it was Paul, maybe. Who knows? There's probably another name in there between. He was probably his fourth choice. As smooth as Paul George is, look, I love his game. Like when Paul George is playing well, there's nothing prettier in the league, really. It's so smooth and effortless, right? But again, back to the AD subject in the beginning. Does he have it? It's not something you develop later in your career. And Paul, it seems like when the lights get bright, he hasn't performed like you expect. He should have a bounce back game, but know that he is going, I believe, to get the wrath of this. If the Clippers get upset or when they get knocked out, if they don't win it all, I think Paul's going to wear the brunt of this. Kawhi, kind of like Clay, maybe it's that aloof personality, but he kind of doesn't get criticism, right? He kind of gets a pass sometimes. And Maxi Kleba has more than done a respectable job on Kawhi. He got his numbers, right? He's averaging like 30, but I don't see a need to necessarily send a double. Like he's making him work. He's taking tough contested shots, right? So Maxi Kleber's been well. And then I love DeLon Wright, man. DeLon Wright is a winner. I know that's cliche, man, but his hustle, his scrappiness, I'm not saying he's like a starting guard. Ideally, he comes off your bench for you, but you love having a guy like that come off the bench. The energy, the scrappiness, and he's just willing to do the dirty work. You don't find a lot of guards doing that. It's usually like the wings, scrappy garbage men. You don't usually have guards that athletic that are scrappy like that. I love DeLon Wright. Seth Curry was huge because Luka in foul trouble. KP, man, KP is disappointing defensively. He really is. Like, he has this thing where he just is too narrow. He gets too skinny. It's basketball 101. When you're in middle school, when you're first learning basketball, what is your youth coach teaching you? Get wide in your stance. Be wide, right? So you can move laterally. And KP almost gets narrow. He almost turns his shoulder and gets skinny because I think he wants to turn and block everything. His fundamentals are poor, but it's more than that. He's lazy. He's lazy. Like that and one he gave up to Montrez late where he just kind of reached over. He's lazy, man. He's lazy. He has, and what makes it more frustrating is unlike Jokic, he's more than physically capable. Like he is athletic. He's super tall. You see the timing, but he's just lazy. And it's something that he needs to understand, and he doesn't, clearly. That's what's going to make him great. Like if KP wants to be great and fulfill the nickname of the unicorn, he's going to have to be a good defender. That's cool. You're 7'3", you shoot threes, right? You've got a little bit of wiggle with the ball. You can put it down a bit, finish above the rim. That's cool, right? But like, are you going to become a legit rim protector and a plus defender like you can? Because that's what's going to make you special. Otherwise, you're going to just be a tier 2, maybe even a tier 3 guy next to Luka, right? So I don't know if that's going to ever click for him. I understand he's still young, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like he gets it. It almost reminds me of KD, as far as KD, when he took that step, you saw it like the last season in OKC, but then when he came to the Warriors, right, he really started to they asked of him more defensively, and you saw him reach his potential defensively. But the difference, there's several differences between the two, right? But we know how hungry KD has been to become great. He's wanted it and he's become it. I'm not so sure KP wants to be great. I don't know. He might just be content. Maybe he needs some facial hair. But I think the Clippers are in trouble, man. I think the Clippers are in trouble. Needless to say, these neutral playing grounds favor the underdog. But, we had talked about this in the last podcast, the discussion of, well, the NBA, the ratings are down, and it's pretty obvious they need an LA versus LA conference finals. So we're going to see the refs lean that way. And we saw it again last night, man. If you ask me, I'm objective in this series. No, I'm not. I want Dallas to win. I don't like the Clippers, man. I don't know. I don't like the Clippers. But just watching it, it seemed like the Clippers were getting the whistle again. And I'm sure we're going to see that tonight in the Lakers-Blazers game. But, I'm not so sure that is necessarily what's best for the NBA and the ratings. Like, if you ask me, Luka and Dame might equal higher ratings than LeBron and Kawhi. I know it's market size and star power, but from an aesthetic standpoint and from a fluidity and actual fun watching the game, Luka and Dame are much more fun. Kawhi has top 3 ugliest games of any superstar, and LeBron, they're so robotic and rigid. Anyway, I'm not going to get too far into that. The point is, I know we all feel like, it's headed towards an LA thing and the NBA wants that, but it may not necessarily be a bad thing if it's upset city and we get Dame and Luka. It might be more fun. Anyway, join me later today live for the lottery results and I'll answer some questions on the draft and whatever y'all have for me. I'm out, y'all.
So long as like alchemy.